The abduction. Mira stood by the window, cradling a steaming cup of tea in her hands. The quiet night outside was a stark contrast to the chaos in her mind. Ever since her husband's passing 2 years ago, she had focused solely on her son, Noah. He was her world, her reason to keep moving forward. The clock on the wall struck midnight. Mira sighed, setting her cup down on the table. She walked to Noah's room to check on him, a nightly routine that gave her peace. The dim light of the hallway illuminated her path, and as she opened the door to the nursery, her heart melted at the sight of her 3-year-old son sleeping peacefully, clutching his favorite stuffed bear. But tonight, something felt off. A faint hum filled the air, so soft it was almost imperceptible. Mira dismissed it as her imagination, whispering to herself, "Just tired." As she turned to leave, a sudden burst of light flooded the room. She spun around, shielding her eyes, and froze in shock. Hovering above Noah's crib was a shimmering orb of pale blue light. Within seconds, it began to grow, pulsating with an energy that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. "Noah!" she screamed, rushing forward. But as she reached the crib, a powerful force pushed her back, slamming her against the wall. Her vision blurred, but she could still see through the light. A silhouette, tall and slender, with elongated limbs and a featureless face. It was unlike anything she had ever seen. "No, leave him alone," Mira shouted, struggling against the invisible force holding her down. Noah woke up, his small cries piercing through the hum. The alien figure extended an arm toward the crib, and a soft, blue beam of light enveloped Noah, lifting him gently into the air. Mira's desperation fueled her strength. She managed to break free and lunge toward her son. Her fingers brushed the edge of the crib, but it was too late. The orb of light, the alien figure, and her son all vanished in an instant, leaving behind only silence. Mira collapsed to the floor, her chest heaving, as she gasped for air. Tears streamed down her face as she clawed at the empty crib, screaming Noah's name. Her mind raced, struggling to comprehend what had just happened. Was it a nightmare? A hallucination? No, it was real, too real. She looked around the room, searching for any clue, any sign of what had taken her son. That's when she noticed it. A small, pulsating device lying on the floor where the orb had been. It was metallic, about the size of her palm, with strange symbols etched into its surface. The symbols glowed faintly, shifting and changing like a living thing. Mira picked up the device cautiously, her hands trembling. As she held it, the symbols rearranged themselves, forming a pattern that almost looked like a star map. A cold dread settled over her as she realized this wasn't something she could explain or fight on her own. The hum returned, faint but growing louder. Mira's grip tightened on the device as she spun around, expecting the alien to return. Instead, the hum faded, replaced by a deafening silence that felt heavier than before. She stumbled into the living room, clutching the device to her chest. Her hands fumbled for her phone as she tried to call the police, but what would she even say? "Aliens took my son. They'd think she was crazy." Still, she dialed, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hit the numbers. Before the call connected, the device in her hand emitted a sharp beep. Startled, she dropped it on the coffee table. A beam of light shot out from the device, projecting an image onto the wall. Mira's breath caught as she saw it. A star map, detailed and vast, with one location marked by a glowing red dot. It was unlike any map she had seen before, and she knew instinctively it wasn't from Earth. Her phone slipped from her hand, the call forgotten. Mira stared at the map, her heart pounding. This was a message, she realized, a clue left behind by the aliens. They had taken her son, but they hadn't erased all traces of their presence. This was her chance to find him. Mira's grief began to shift into something else. Determination. She didn't know where the map led or how she would get there, but she knew one thing for certain. She would do whatever it took to bring her son back. The night was no longer silent. The faint hum lingered in the air, a reminder of the presence that had invaded her home. But this time, it didn't fill Mira with fear. It fueled her resolve. She stared at the glowing red dot on the map and whispered, "I'm coming for you, Noah. I promise." And with that promise, Mira's journey began, one that would take her beyond the boundaries of Earth, into the unknown depths of space, and against enemies far more powerful than she could imagine. The revelation. The old diner on the outskirts of town was nearly empty, except for a lone figure seated in the corner booth. Mira hesitated at the entrance, clutching the alien device tightly in her hand. She scanned the room, her eyes settling on the man she had come to meet. He was hunched over a cup of coffee, his face partially obscured by a weathered baseball cap. Mira's footsteps echoed in the quiet space as she approached. The man didn't look up until she slid into the booth across from him. His eyes were sharp, scanning her with the precision of someone who didn't trust easily. "Are you Darius?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. He nodded slowly, leaning back in his seat. "You're the woman who claims her child was taken by aliens." His tone was flat, almost dismissive. "It's not a claim," Mira snapped, placing the pulsating device on the table between them. "This is proof." Darius's eyes widened ever so slightly as he studied the object. He reached out but paused, glancing at her for permission. Mira gave a reluctant nod, and he picked up the device, turning it over in his hands. "This," he murmured, his voice trailing off. For a moment, his guarded demeanor cracked, revealing a flicker of unease. "Where did you get this?" "It was left behind when they took my son," Mira said, her voice trembling. "I don't know what it is, but I know it's connected to them. I need to know how to use it." Darius set the device down carefully, his hands lingering on the table. "Do you have any idea what this is?" he asked, his tone serious. When Mira shook her head, he continued, "It's not just a tracker or some random piece of tech. This is a key, a communicator. And it's not meant for humans." Mira's heart sank. Then why would they leave it behind? Darius leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "They didn't leave it for you. They left it as a marker, a breadcrumb for their own kind. You must have activated it somehow, and now." He hesitated, glancing around the diner as if expecting someone, or something, to walk through the door. "Now they know exactly where you are." Mira felt a chill run down her spine. "You're saying they're coming back." "I'm saying you're on borrowed time," Darius replied grimly. "But there's more to this than just a kidnapping. They don't take humans at random, and they don't leave their tech lying around by mistake. Your son." He stopped, choosing his words carefully. "There's a reason they took him. Something about him is important to them." Mira's fists clenched. "I don't care why they took him. I just want him back." Darius nodded, his expression softening slightly. "I get it. But if you want to have any chance of finding him, you're going to need help. And not just mine." "Help from who?" Mira asked, skeptical. Darius gestured toward the device. "This thing contains data, coordinates, patterns, maybe even a message. I know people who can decode it, but they're not exactly friendly. They're part of a group that's been preparing for alien contact for decades. They call themselves the Vanguard." Mira frowned. "And you trust them?" Darius smirked. "Not in the slightest. But they're the only ones with the resources to help us figure this out." Before Mira could respond, the device emitted a sudden, high-pitched beep. Both of them froze as the pulsating light intensified, casting strange shadows across the walls of the diner. The beep grew louder, more insistent, and then stopped abruptly. "What just happened?" Mira whispered. Darius's expression darkened. "They're here." The diner's windows rattled as a low, rumbling hum filled the air. Mira turned toward the entrance, her breath catching in her throat. Outside, the night sky was lit by an eerie glow, and a faint outline of something massive hovered above the building. Darius grabbed the device and stuffed it into his bag. We need to move. Now. Mira didn't argue. She followed him out the back door, her mind racing. The quiet streets of her small town now felt like a war zone waiting to ignite. As they ran, she glanced up at the glowing sky, her fear replaced by a growing determination. Noah was out there, somewhere in the vast unknown. And if these creatures thought they could take him without a fight, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. Mira's journey had taken its first turn, a revelation that would change everything. And as the shadows above shifted, she knew one thing for certain. She was no longer running. She was chasing. Assembling the team. The underground facility smelled of grease and burnt metal, the air heavy with the hum of machinery. Mira followed Darius through a dimly lit corridor, her eyes darting to every shadow. This wasn't the kind of place she ever imagined herself stepping into. But then again, nothing about her life was normal anymore. At the end of the hallway, a heavy steel door loomed, covered in scratches and graffiti that seemed more like alien script than human art. Darius stopped and pounded on it in a rhythmic sequence, the sound echoing down the hall. "What is this place?" Mira asked, clutching the device in her hands. She'd grown used to its faint, pulsating glow, but it still unsettled her. "It's the Vanguard's hub," Darius replied, glancing over his shoulder. "They call themselves freedom fighters, but don't let the name fool you. They're not exactly heroes." The door groaned open, revealing a massive chamber bustling with activity. People in mismatched armor worked on spacecraft, tinkered with weapons, and analyzed holographic projections of alien ships. The smell of sweat and oil was overwhelming. A woman with short-cropped hair and a cybernetic eye stepped forward, her expression sharp and unwelcoming. "Darius," she said, her voice laced with suspicion. "You brought company." "She's not company. Lyra," Darius replied, gesturing to Mira. "She's our ticket to the aliens." Lyra's mechanical eye scanned Mira, the red light flickering as it analyzed her. "She doesn't look like much." "She's the mother of a kid the aliens took," Darius said flatly. "And she has this." He pulled the device from Mira's hands and held it up for everyone to see. The room fell silent. The pulsating glow of the device reflected off curious and wary faces. A man in a grease-stained jumpsuit muttered, "Is that?" "Yes," Darius said, cutting him off. "It's real. And it's active." Lyra's expression shifted from skepticism to intrigue. "How did you get this?" she asked, her tone softer now. "They left it behind when they took my son," Mira said, stepping forward. "I don't know what it is or how it works, but I know it's connected to them, and I need your help to find him." Lyra crossed her arms, studying Mira. "You think we can just stroll into alien space and rescue your kid? Do you have any idea what you're asking?" "I'm not asking," Mira snapped, her voice cutting through the tension. "I'm telling you, if you have the resources to decode this thing, then do it. I'll find a way to handle the rest." A few murmurs rippled through the crowd, but Lyra silenced them with a raised hand. "She's got guts. I'll give her that," she said, smirking slightly. "But guts won't get you far out there." "It's not just guts," Darius added. "That device is a map. It could lead us to something bigger than just her kid." Lyra narrowed her eyes. "Bigger? Something the aliens don't want us to know," Darius replied. "You've seen the patterns. They've been taking people for years, and it's always the same, isolated cases, no connections, no explanations. But this," he held up the device again. "This could change everything." The room fell silent again, the weight of Darius's words sinking in. Finally, Lyra nodded. "All right," she said. "We'll help, but there's a price." Mira frowned. "What kind of price?" Lyra's smirk returned. "Prove you're not just some desperate mother in over her head. We have a mission coming up. An alien relay station we've been trying to crack for months. It's heavily guarded, and we need someone to get close enough to plant a disruptor." Mira's heart raced. "You want me to go on a mission? If you're serious about this, you'll do whatever it takes. Lyra said coldly. "Otherwise, you can walk out that door and take your glowing trinket with you." Mira hesitated, her hands tightening into fists. Every instinct told her this was insane, that she was risking her life for people who barely trusted her. But then she thought of Noah, his laugh, his tiny hands reaching for her, and she knew she didn't have a choice. "I'll do it," she said firmly. Lyra raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised. "All right then. Suit her up," she said, turning to the others. "Let's see if she's as tough as she thinks she is." As the Vanguard members moved to prepare her for the mission, Mira felt a strange mix of fear and determination. She was stepping into a world she didn't understand, surrounded by people she didn't trust. But she wasn't doing it for them. She was doing it for Noah, and she would do whatever it took to bring him home. Above them, the faint hum of alien activity lingered in the sky, a reminder of the growing danger. But Mira didn't flinch. For the first time, she felt like she was fighting back. The pursuit. The ship jolted violently, and Mira barely caught herself on the edge of the console. Alarms blared, the cockpit bathed in red light as the Vanguard ship twisted and turned through the void of space. Outside the viewing screen, shadows loomed. Alien crafts moving with unnerving precision, their sleek forms glinting in the starlight. "Brace yourselves," shouted Lyra, gripping the controls with white-knuckled determination. "They're not letting us go without a fight." Mira clung to her seat, her heart racing. This wasn't what she had expected. She thought the alien station raid had been the hard part, sneaking in, planting the disruptor, and narrowly escaping before the alarms went off. But this was something else entirely. The aliens had found them, and now they were being hunted. "Why are they chasing us?" Mira yelled over the chaos. "They got their station back." "They're not after the station," Darius called from the navigation terminal, his fingers flying over the controls. "They're after her." Mira froze. "Me?" "No, the glowing alien artifact you're holding." Darius snapped, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Yes, you. That device you're carrying. It's more than just a map. You activated something when you were on that station." "I didn't do anything," Mira shouted back. But even as she said it, a memory flashed through her mind. Her hand brushing against a panel, the device vibrating in response. She hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now it felt like a mistake she couldn't undo. "Whether you meant to or not, they know," Lyra said, her voice strained as she swerved to avoid another blast. "And they don't leave loose ends." Another explosion rocked the ship, and a shower of sparks rained down from the ceiling. Mira shielded her face, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. She wasn't a soldier, wasn't trained for this kind of chaos. But then she thought of Noah, alone, scared, somewhere in the vast expanse of space, and her fear hardened into resolve. "What do we do?" Mira asked, forcing herself to stay calm. "We fight," Lyra said grimly, punching a series of buttons on the console. "Everyone, strap in. I'm taking us through the debris field." Darius's head snapped up. "Are you insane? That field's a death trap." "Better than getting picked off one by one," Lyra shot back. "Hold tight." The ship plunged into the debris field, a swirling mass of broken asteroid fragments and derelict spacecraft. Mira gripped the armrests of her seat as the ship wove through the maze, narrowly dodging chunks of rock and twisted metal. The alien crafts followed, their movements eerily smooth as they navigated the obstacles. "They're gaining on us," someone shouted from the back. "Not for long," Lyra muttered. She slammed a lever forward, and the ship's thrusters roared to life. The sudden burst of speed sent Mira's stomach lurching, but it also widened the gap between them and their pursuers. For a moment, it seemed like they might escape. But then, the lead alien craft fired a pulse of energy that streaked through the debris, slamming into their ship. The lights flickered, and the ship lurched violently to one side. "We've lost the main engine," Darius shouted. "We're sitting ducks out here." Mira's mind raced. She looked at the device in her lap, its glow pulsating faster now, as if responding to the danger. An idea sparked. A reckless, desperate idea. "What if we use this?" she asked, holding up the device. Lyra glanced at her, eyes narrowing. "Use it how?" "I don't know," Mira admitted. "But it's connected to them, right? Maybe it can. I don't know, disrupt their systems or something." "That's a big maybe," Darius said, but he was already moving toward her. "Let me see it." Mira handed him the device, and he quickly connected it to the ship's systems. The lights dimmed, and a strange hum filled the air as the device's glow intensified. On the screen, alien symbols flickered, accompanied by a deep, resonant tone that seemed to vibrate through the entire ship. "What's it doing?" Mira asked, her voice tight with anxiety. "Sending out a signal," Darius said, his eyes glued to the screen. "If we're lucky, it'll scramble their comms. If we're not." A loud bang interrupted him, followed by the sound of something tearing through the hull. "Then we're toast," Lyra finished grimly. The alien crafts began to falter, their movements growing erratic. Mira watched in awe as one by one, they veered off course, crashing into debris or spiraling out of control. The lead craft, however, remained steady, its weapons still locked on them. "It's not enough," Lyra shouted. "That one's still coming." Mira's heart pounded. She grabbed the device from Darius and stared at it, willing it to do more. As if sensing her desperation, the glow intensified again, and the alien symbols shifted into a recognizable pattern. The same star map she had seen before, but now with a new mark. A second later, the lead craft froze mid-flight, its lights flickering before going dark. It drifted silently, lifeless in the void. The cockpit was silent, save for the ragged breathing of the crew. "What just happened?" Mira asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Darius shook his head, staring at the darkened alien ship. I think it recognized the signal. And it stood down." Lyra exhaled, slumping back in her seat. "Whatever you did, it worked. But don't think this means we're safe." Mira looked at the device in her hands, its glow now dimming to a soft pulse. She didn't understand what had just happened or why the aliens had retreated, but one thing was clear. The answers she needed lay deeper in the unknown. And she wasn't stopping now. The betrayal. The silence inside the ship was suffocating, broken only by the faint hum of the engines. Mira sat in the corner of the main deck, staring at the alien device resting in her hands. Its glow had dimmed since the battle in the debris field, but the faint pulsation still felt alive, as though it were waiting for something or someone. Lyra leaned against the control console, her sharp gaze fixed on the holographic map flickering above. "We're running low on fuel and supplies. There's a station on the outer edge of the Novar cluster where we can restock." "That's a Vanguard-friendly zone, right?" Mira asked, breaking the silence. Lyra snorted. "Friendly is a stretch, but they owe us a few favors." Darius, seated nearby, frowned at the map. "We don't have time for detours. The signal from that device is still active. Every second we waste increases the chances of them tracking us again. Unless you've figured out how to deactivate it, we don't have a choice." Lyra shot back. Mira stood, her fingers tightening around the device. "Enough. Let's just focus on getting to this station and regrouping. We can't afford to fall apart now." The tension in the room eased slightly, and Lyra gave a reluctant nod. She turned back to the controls, entering the coordinates for the Novar cluster. Mira felt the weight of the crew's distrust, the unspoken questions hanging in the air. Was this all worth it? Was she worth it? She didn't have time to dwell on it. A soft chime from the navigation panel announced their arrival at the station. Mira peered through the viewing screen, her breath catching at the sight. The station was a sprawling structure, a chaotic mix of human and alien technology. It hung in the void like a skeletal giant, its mismatched lights casting eerie shadows. As they docked, Lyra barked orders. Stick together. No unnecessary risks. This place isn't exactly known for its hospitality. The crew descended into the bustling station, a labyrinth of narrow corridors and open markets teeming with smugglers, mercenaries, and scavengers. Mira kept the device tucked under her jacket, wary of the curious glances they attracted. They made their way to a hidden backroom where Lyra's contact, a wiry man with cybernetic arms, awaited them. He glanced at Mira, his mechanical eyes whirring softly. "This the one with the alien tech?" "She's with us, Axel," Lyra said sharply. "Keep your questions to yourself." Axel smirked, holding up his hands. "Fair enough. What do you need?" "Fuel, supplies, and a clean scan of this," Darius said, sliding a data chip across the table. "We're looking for any chatter about alien activity near the coordinates on that map." Axel examined the chip before nodding. "Give me an hour." As he disappeared into the shadows, the crew settled into the dimly lit room. Mira couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Her instincts screamed that something was wrong. She was right. The first sign came when the station's lights flickered, plunging the room into momentary darkness. When they came back on, Darius was gone. "Where is he?" Mira asked, her voice rising with panic. Lyra cursed under her breath, drawing her weapon. "Stay close." They moved cautiously through the corridors, scanning for any sign of their missing crewmate. Mira's heart pounded as they turned a corner and found Darius in a secluded alcove. He stood with his back to them, seemingly unharmed. "Darius?" Lyra called, her weapon trained on him. He turned slowly, his expression unreadable. In his hands, he held the alien device. "What are you doing?" Mira demanded, stepping forward. "I'm sorry, Mira," Darius said quietly. "But I can't let this go on." Mira froze, her blood turning cold. "What are you talking about?" Darius sighed, his grip tightening on the device. "You don't understand what this thing is. It's not just a map. It's a beacon. The aliens didn't take your son by accident. They took him because of you. Because of what's in your blood." "What are you saying?" Mira whispered, her voice trembling. "The Vanguard knew," Darius said. "They knew about the abductions, the patterns. You're not the first, Mira. And you won't be the last. This device, it's the key to something much bigger, something we can't control." Lyra stepped forward, her weapon aimed at Darius. "Put it down, Darius." "Now." "I can't," he said, his voice filled with regret. "They made me an offer. A chance to end this, to save humanity. I had to take it." Before Mira could react, Darius pressed a button on the device. A sharp, piercing sound filled the air, and the glow intensified, casting the room in blinding light. Mira stumbled backward, her vision swimming as she heard the unmistakable sound of alien ships approaching. Lyra fired, but Darius was already gone, disappearing into the chaos as the station erupted in alarms. Mira clutched her head, trying to process what had just happened. "He betrayed us," Lyra snarled. "He handed them everything." Mira's chest tightened. The person she thought she could trust most had just sold her out, and in doing so, had put not just her, but the entire crew in unimaginable danger. As the sound of alien forces drew closer, Mira knew the fight wasn't over. It was only just beginning. The alien world. The planet loomed before them, a swirling mass of greens and purples against the void of space. Its surface shimmered with a strange iridescent glow that seemed alive, shifting and pulsing like a living organism. Mira stared out the viewing screen, her heart caught somewhere between awe and dread. "This is it," Lyra said, her voice uncharacteristically quiet. "The coordinates from the device lead here." "Doesn't look like any planet I've seen," muttered Axel, who had joined the crew after Darius's betrayal. "More like something out of a fever dream." Mira couldn't tear her eyes away. "Nose down there," she said, gripping the edge of the console. "I can feel it." Lyra adjusted the ship's trajectory, her hand steady despite the tension thick in the air. We don't know what we're walking into, so everyone stay sharp. This place, it doesn't look natural." As the ship descended through the atmosphere, the alien landscape came into view. Massive crystalline spires jutted out of the ground, their surfaces reflecting the vibrant hues of the planet's sky. Strange flora swayed despite the lack of wind, and rivers of glowing liquid snaked across the terrain. The ship landed on a flat expanse near a cluster of the crystalline spires. Mira was the first to step outside, her boots sinking slightly into the soft, moss-like surface. The air was thick but breathable, carrying a faint metallic tang. Axel scanned the area with his equipment. Radiation levels are low, but there's some kind of energy field surrounding those spires. It's interfering with my sensors. Lyra checked her weapon. Then we do this the old-fashioned way. Mira, you lead the way. That device of yours seems to have a mind of its own. Mira nodded, pulling the device from her bag. Its glow had returned, brighter than ever, and it pulsed rhythmically, as if guiding her forward. She took a deep breath and started walking toward the spires, the others close behind. As they approached, Mira noticed intricate carvings etched into the crystalline structures, alien symbols and patterns that seemed to shift and change when viewed from different angles. She reached out to touch one, but Lyra grabbed her wrist. "Don't," Lyra warned. "We don't know what it might do." Mira hesitated but nodded, lowering her hand. The device in her hand emitted a soft chime, and a beam of light shot out, projecting a holographic map of the spires. One of them glowed red. "Looks like that's our destination," Axel said, pointing to the marked spire. The team moved cautiously, weaving through the alien terrain. The closer they got to the glowing spire, the more Mira felt a strange pull in her chest, a connection she couldn't explain. The ground beneath their feet began to shift subtly, as if responding to their presence. Suddenly, a low hum filled the air. Mira froze, her eyes darting around. The hum grew louder, resonating through the ground and vibrating in her bones. Then, out of the shadows, figures emerged. The aliens were unlike anything they had faced before. Tall, with elongated limbs and skin that shimmered like liquid metal, they moved with a grace that was both beautiful and unsettling. Their featureless faces turned toward the group, and for a moment, no one moved. "Mira," Lyra whispered, her weapon raised. "What now?" The device in Mira's hand pulsed again, and one of the aliens stepped forward. It tilted its head, its body rippling as it emitted a series of sounds, low, melodic tones that seemed to resonate in Mira's chest. She didn't understand the words, but the intent was clear. "They want me to follow," Mira said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Like hell they do," Axel muttered, raising his weapon. "This has trap written all over it." "No," Mira said firmly, stepping forward. "If this is the only way to find Noah, then I'm doing it." Lyra hesitated but lowered her weapon. "We're coming with you." The alien didn't react as Mira and the others followed it toward the glowing spire. As they entered, the walls seemed to come alive, shifting and pulsing with an energy Mira couldn't describe. The air was thick with an unearthly hum, and the symbols on the walls glowed faintly as they passed. Finally, they entered a vast chamber, its ceiling stretching so high it disappeared into darkness. In the center was a large, transparent pod, filled with a swirling blue liquid. Inside was a small figure. "Noah," Mira whispered, running toward the pod. She placed her hands on the surface, her breath hitching as she saw her son suspended inside, his eyes closed. One of the aliens stepped forward, placing its hand on the pod. The symbols on the walls flared to life, and the alien emitted another series of tones. This time, Mira felt something in her mind. A voice, calm and deliberate. "The child is the key." Mira recoiled, clutching her head. "What are you talking about? He's just a boy." The alien's tone shifted, more insistent. "He is more. Humanity is more. A link between worlds. You must choose." "Choose what?" Mira demanded, tears streaming down her face. "I just want my son back." The alien didn't answer. Instead, the symbols on the walls began to shift, forming a star map that stretched across the chamber. Mira's heart sank as she realized the map wasn't just of their galaxy, it spanned the universe. "What is this?" Lyra asked, her voice filled with awe. Axel's scanner beeped furiously. "This isn't just a map. It's a blueprint for something massive." The alien gestured to the pod, and Mira felt the voice in her mind again. "The choice will determine the fate of all." As the chamber pulsed with energy, Mira faced the impossible decision before her: save her son, or uncover the truth that could change the future of humanity forever. The final decision. The chamber pulsed with an eerie rhythm, the alien symbols on the walls glowing brighter with each beat. Mira stood frozen before the pod, her hands pressed against its cold, transparent surface. Inside, Noah floated peacefully, his small face serene, as if unaware of the impossible weight resting on his mother's shoulders. The alien that had led them here stood silently, its featureless face tilted as though studying her. The voice in her mind was calm but relentless. "The child is the key. The path you choose will shape the future." "What do you mean?" Mira demanded, her voice trembling. "What path? What future?" The symbols shifted, their glow intensifying until the chamber was bathed in light. The star map from earlier returned, but now it was alive. Planets, galaxies, and nebulae spinning in intricate patterns. At the center of it all was Earth, its position marked by a faint, pulsating beacon. Lyra and Axel stood behind her, their weapons drawn but useless in the face of the overwhelming power surrounding them. "This doesn't look like a choice," Lyra muttered, her voice laced with tension. "This looks like manipulation." The alien turned its head toward Lyra, and the voice resonated in Mira's mind again, addressing all of them. "You misunderstand. This is not control. This is survival." Axel scoffed, his grip tightening on his weapon. "Survival for who? You or us?" The alien ignored him, its attention fixed on Mira. The symbols around the pod shifted again, forming two distinct paths. One led back to Earth, the beacon glowing steadily. The other spiraled outward into the depths of the galaxy, its destination shrouded in darkness. "The child carries the link," the voice said. "His existence bridges two worlds. Return him, and humanity remains as it is, isolated, divided, unprepared. Or embrace the unknown, and humanity evolves. But evolution comes with sacrifice." Mira's knees nearly buckled under the weight of the words. She glanced back at Lyra and Axel, searching for answers in their faces. Lyra looked torn, her usual stoicism replaced by uncertainty. Axel's eyes were hard, his distrust of the aliens clear. "You're asking me to gamble with my son's life," Mira said, her voice breaking. "With everyone's lives." "Not gamble," the voice corrected. "Choose." Mira looked at Noah, her heart aching. She wanted to take him home, to hold him and protect him from whatever these beings had planned. But a part of her, deep and instinctual, knew there was more at stake. The map of the galaxy, the whispers of humanity's potential, the ominous warnings, they weren't empty threats. "What happens if I choose the unknown?" Mira asked, her voice steadier now. The alien extended a hand, and the star map shifted again. Planets and civilizations blossomed like flowers across the projection, interconnected by pathways of light. But then came the shadows. Massive, consuming forces that snuffed out entire systems. The light flickered, fighting back, but the outcome remained unclear. "Unity, growth, resistance," the voice said, "but also conflict, loss, pain. Evolution demands struggle." "And if I choose to take him home?" Mira asked, her throat tightening. The map reset, shrinking to focus on Earth. The beacon pulsed steadily, its light strong but contained. The rest of the galaxy faded into darkness. Safety, isolation, stagnation, the voice said. Humanity will survive, but it will not thrive. The greater threats will come, and you will face them alone. Mira's chest heaved as she weighed the impossible options. She turned to Lyra and Axel. What do you think? Lyra hesitated, her fingers flexing on her weapon. I don't trust them. But if they're right, maybe this is bigger than us. Bigger than Noah. Axel shook his head. This isn't our fight. Let's take the kid and get out of here. Humanity survived this long without alien help. We'll figure it out. Mira looked back at Noah, her vision blurring with tears. She wanted to scream, to curse the universe for forcing this choice on her. But deep down, she knew the decision was hers alone. She stepped forward, placing both hands on the pod. I'll do it, she said, her voice trembling but resolute. I'll choose the unknown. But I'm not leaving Noah behind. The alien tilted its head, and the symbols flared brightly. The child remains. His purpose is not yet fulfilled. No, Mira said, her voice rising. If you want me to trust you, you'll let me take him. We'll face the unknown together. The alien hesitated, and for the first time, Mira thought she saw uncertainty in its shimmering form. The chamber fell silent, the hum of energy ceasing as the alien considered her words. Finally, the voice returned. Very well. The choice is made. The pod began to dissolve, the blue liquid evaporating into mist. Noah's small body lowered gently into Mira's arms. She clutched him tightly, tears streaming down her face as his eyes fluttered open. Mama, he whispered, his voice weak but clear. I'm here, Mira said, holding him close. I've got you. The alien stepped back, its form beginning to fade. The path is set. The galaxy awaits. Your journey has only begun. As the chamber dimmed and the star map dissolved, Mira felt a surge of both fear and hope. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. She would face it head-on, with Noah in her arms and the weight of humanity's destiny on her shoulders. The ship lifted off the alien world, leaving behind the shimmering spires and the impossible choices that had defined Mira's journey. Ahead lay the vast unknown, a galaxy full of light and shadow, danger and discovery. And Mira was ready.